Hello, good afternoon and welcome to the Midday News. We're live on Joy 99.7 FM here in Accra, in Kumasi on Love 99.5 FM. We are in all 16 regions on Ganga FM in Jirapa, Flow FM in Aflao, Jubilee FM and Sun City Radio in Keta, ATL FM in Cape Coast, Radio Max in Takrady, and Pad FM in Damongo. We're live on Facebook, also on my joyonline.com interactive app. The Midday News is sponsored by Petrosol, your clean fuel in full quantity. Petrosol, always a delightful experience. Also brought to you by Duraplast Ghana Limited, producers of quality PVC pipes and water tank. Where Duraplast goes, water flows. This afternoon, desperate plea by industry players for government to abandon its quest to have 3 new tax measures considered key to IMF program passed by Parliament.
Is it better for these businesses to be in operation and at least even pay the corporate taxes, the PAYE, the withholding and all that, instead of them holding up where we will lose virtually everything?
This tax risks the collapse of indigenous Ghanaian companies and will be a disincentive to international oil companies who are looking to do business in Ghana.
We have details also here from a tax consultant and take you live to Parliament as deliberations on the bills are slated for today. Also frustrations of the Ashanti Regional Minister as he lists a litany of issues about the Ketia Market Complex, including the management team, non-compliant fire hydrants, wrong metering system ahead of a formal appearance before a committee probing the fire.
The Ghana National Fire Service raised issues about the complex of the hydrants, and that they were not compatible with what is used in Ghana. It's one of the reasons why they were not even given fire certificate, and that is one reason why they could not even renew their insurance.
We have more as he says his complaints resulted in bad blood between himself and the former Kumasi mayor.
I reported to the then Minister for Local Government, where I find out the KME boss, anytime I raise the issue, people insulted me on radio and on social media through the then KME mayor. People said that I didn't like it.
We have an update on the suspect alleged to have started the fire. Also, we focus on the presidential election bill ahead of the 2024 elections.
USD 100 million to fund a parliamentary and a presidential campaign, respectively, in Ghana.
Also, former President Mahama has a solution to cure the problem.
I commend that we put in place an explicit public funding of political parties bill in a bipartisan and inclusive manner to regulate this phenomenon.
But not everyone is convinced.
It is political talk. We have seen these things happen in the past. When a party is in opposition, is able to make all these promises to raise all these concerns.
And later in sports,
the Black Stars will be back on the pitch for the first time in 2023 in a crucial encounter against Angola.
That and more in this afternoon's edition of the Midday News. I am Emefa Apawu. This is your home of independent, fearless, and credible journalism. Please stay for details. Thanks for staying with us. Let's settle for details now. And there's a desperate plea for government not to pass its 3 new revenue measures. Players in the petroleum upstream sector, importers and exporters are all warning of dire consequences if these bills are passed. President Akufo-Addo this month told Parliament the Growth and Sustainability Bill, Excise Duty Amendment Bill and the Income Tax Amendment Bill need to be passed to enable government to secure an IMF support program.
Parliament has cleared almost everything off its schedule for Thursday to allow it more time to deal with these outstanding bills. These bills are the Income Tax Amendment Bill, the Excise Duty Amendment Bill, and the Growth and Sustainability Amendment Bill. If passed, these bills are expected to rake in about 4 billion cedis annually. President Akufo-Addo, in his message on the State of the Nation, urged Parliament to expedite action.
A few more of these measures which need the urgent attention of the House to complete the prior action.
But the minority say they still have outstanding issues which must be cleared.
We have some reservations. The way we are looking at the economic environment that we find ourselves, the hardship that people are complaining about. So on top of all these, if you want to introduce additional taxes, people are going to pay more, and it's going to affect the disposable income of the individual.
Leadership on the minority side especially have been tight-lipped as to where the caucus stands on these taxes, but time will reveal it all on the floor of Parliament today. Reporting for Joy News, Kweku Asante.
Parliamentary Affairs correspondent Kweku Asante filed that report. We'll head to him shortly, but Deputy Energy Minister Andrew Ejapamesa says he expects the minority in Parliament to support the passage of these bills.
Government said, oh, let's try and do it on our own. Let's do some burden sharing and try and resolve this issue on our own, because we know what it is that would happen to us when we go to IMF, the conditions that they will impose. They still insisted that, put all those things aside and go to IMF. It would be surprising to me that they would turn around today and say that they are not going to support the prior actions that will enable you have a successful IMF deal done. And so, like I said, I expect that we'll put the national interest first. We'll look at the issues, have a dispassionate, bipartisan conversation.
That's Andrew Ejapamesa. But what changes are expected once these bills are passed? Joseph Akablaze with our research desk. He joins me in studio. Let's take a look at this. Now, Joseph, first, the Growth and Sustainability Bill. What is this about?
It is to be imposed. It imposes a levy on profits before tax of companies and institutions and on production in case of mining, upstream oil and gas companies. The estimated revenue for 2023 is approximately 2.26 billion. The levy is subject to review by the minister responsible for finance in 2025. The Ghana Upstream Petroleum Chamber says it will collapse business and will be contrary to existing petroleum agreements. David Ampofo is Chief Executive Officer.
We completely understand government's need for revenue at this difficult period for the country. However, this tax risks the collapse of indigenous Ghanaian companies and will be a disincentive to international oil companies who are looking to do business in Ghana. Government should seek other ways of raising revenue, such as expediting the award of blocks and reinvigorating the sector. Absolutely not. We are keen for our members to contribute their quota by doing what they are good at, exploring for and producing oil and gas. That is how we can meaningfully contribute in these trying times. The levy is a tax that is not provided for in the petroleum agreements. A 1% tax on gross production is new to our petroleum agreements.
Now let's talk about the Excise Amendment Bill, Joseph.
It seeks to amend the Excise Duty 2014 Act 878 to revise the excise tax rates for cigarettes and other tobacco products to conform with the Economic Community of West African protocols and raise revenue to mitigate the harmful effects of these products. It is also intended to increase excise duty in respect of wine, malt drinks and spirits, and impose excise duty on sweetened beverages and electronic cigarettes and electronic liquids to increase revenue. The Importers and Exporters Association wants these taxes to be put on hold. Samson Awingobet is Executive Secretary.
When they were reversing the rest of the percentage, they did not. That other committee was never and ever set up between we, the Business Committee, and the Finance Minister. So I don't trust the Finance Minister. This is the second time I'm telling you this. So if you ask me which tax I will choose among the three, I am saying all the three taxes should put on hold now.
Well, the third and final one, the Income Tax Amendment Bill. Tell us about it.
This is the one that affects and will affect a lot of people if it is passed, is to amend the Income Tax Act 2015 Act 896 to revise the rates of income tax for individuals and introduce an additional income tax bracket, introduce a withholding tax rate on the realization of assets and liabilities and on winnings from lottery, unify the loss carried forward provisions and revise the treatment of foreign exchange losses. It is also intended to increase the optional rate for individuals on the gain from the realization of an investment asset, revise the upper limits for the quantification of motor vehicle benefits and increase concessional income tax rates. Tax consultant Eric Amponsah-Boateng says business will struggle if these measures come into law.
I don't think that there will be the need to bring in these new ones, because I see at the end of the day, what is going to happen is that these businesses, if you're not careful, they become very uncompetitive, okay, and therefore they tend to lose out. on the market. And when that happens, it means that eventually they are going to collapse.
Okay.
So I will ask us all, is it better for these businesses to be in operation and at least even pay the corporate taxes, the PAYE, the withholding and all that, instead of them folding up where we will lose virtually everything?
Well, we've had the concerns about all three bills to be introduced or passed later in Parliament. But have we heard from the Finance Ministry on these concerns that have come up, Joseph?
Director of the Revenue Policy Division, George Winful, in a media interaction said they have so far engaged all relevant stakeholders. He adds, and I quote, "It is to help to correct the imbalance we are currently experiencing. This is not new, but the essence of it is to rake in revenue to address the shortfalls we encountered during the COVID period and the war between Ukraine and Russia," end quote. He also points out that minimum wage earners would still be exempted from taxes under the Income Tax Amendment Bill, which is anticipated to bring in 1.2 billion cedis if passed into law. It would also change how foreign exchange losses are reported in financial statements.
Okay, thank you very much, Joseph, for breaking that down for us. Let me take you now to our Parliamentary Affairs correspondent, Kweku Asante. He joins us on the line from Parliament with further details. Kweku, tell us if the deliberations have commenced so far, and do we get a clear sense of whether this will be a collaborative passage or division along party lines?
Emefa, the chamber is now filling up. Members on both sides are now entering the chamber. The Speaker is actually yet to do so. I spoke to a highly placed source within the minority leadership. All he could tell me was that prepare for a showdown. Our understanding is that they are in agreement with some of the stakeholders we have also spoken to who are all against these three revenue measures, and they are set to go on the floor and oppose that. Ultimately, what we expect is that this will be a numbers game. The NDC minority MPs have 136, their colleagues have 138. But we do not know if Sarah Joasafo will be in Parliament today, and another deputy minister who also said not to be in the country. If ultimately the numbers come to 136 apiece on both sides, because it's not a secret vote, it's a voice vote, the motion would have lost if the minority stick to their guns. And that is what that source within the minority leadership is telling me, that going into the chamber, he, in his words, they are going to stand with Ghanaians. But the majority side say that the NDC should stop playing politics with some of these measures, and that ultimately these are some of the conditions that the IMF have set. And without the passage of these three crucial revenue measures, it will be difficult for government to get this IMF $3 billion bailout in time. And so it is said to be a political footballing on both sides, sticking to their guns and not willing to make any major compromise.
Okay. Well, aside from the deliberations of these key revenue bills, we know that the approval of ministerial nominees also in the offing, a lot of lobbying going on. Tell us more.
Indeed, just about 5 minutes when I left the chamber, you see Katie Hammond, who is the Minister Designate for Trade and Industry, going to the minority side, talking to MPs. Inshiasu MP, who is also expected to be the Deputy Minister for Trade and Industry, has also gone there. Obi Amwa is also there. So the MPP MPs who have now been nominated to become ministers or deputy ministers or ministers of state are now doing some more lobbying. They are talking to their minority colleagues. Ultimately, if this vote is expected to happen, it will be by secret ballot. That is what makes it even cagey. The last time there was a secret ballot on ministerial nominees, despite the NDC announcing publicly that they were going to vote against the nominees, some of their members voted in favor of those. The General Secretary of the party has already said that they have a mechanism in place to fish out such persons. And so the minority MPs are a bit tight-lipped this morning as to what they want to do, but there is some intense lobbying going on the floor of the chamber as we speak right now.
That's Parliamentary Affairs, Kweku Asante. Now, political parties with intentions of winning the 2024 presidential and parliamentary election will require a minimum of $100 million to prosecute a very vibrant campaign. That's according to a study conducted by the Center for Democratic Development, CDD. The development raises issues about campaign funding and the influences contributors will have on appointees, including the president himself. NDC presidential hopeful John Dramani Mahama last night suggested a bipartisan legislation to address campaign funding. More on him shortly, but first, here's the Director of Advocacy of CDD Ghana, Dr. Kojo Pumpuni Asante.
The latest study conducted by CDD in 2021 estimated that it cost 4 million Ghana cedis, which in dollar terms was 693,000, and USD 100 million to fund a parliamentary and a presidential campaign, respectively, in Ghana. Now, looking at our current economic circumstances, these figures are likely to be even much higher now.
Former Auditor General Daniel Domelevo says the unregulated campaign funding is breeding so much corruption in the public space.
These amounts are huge figures. I don't know how much it is, but they are not philanthropies. They are investing, and they have to recoup it. So when they get back to office, or they get the opportunity one day, they have to recoup with interest, such that the subsequent elections, they may have enough money to fund it. But even if it is a one-off transaction, you may agree with me that the person may have to refund that money to wherever he or she got it from.
Well, former President John Dramani Mahama has a solution. He's suggesting that the state finances campaigns of viable political parties in order to prevent financiers from determining electoral outcomes.
I recommend that we put in place an explicit public funding of political parties bill in a bipartisan and inclusive manner to regulate this phenomenon. I further recommend that should public funding of political parties be scaled up in the foreseeable future, then an independent and credible institution must be selected to administer the state resources advanced to political parties. In that regard, a sharing formula could be established to ensure fairness, and specific disclosure requirements on beneficiary parties must be imposed.
Well, let's talk about the viability of this proposal. Former Executive Director of Ghana Integrity Initiative, Vitus Azim, is casting doubt on the sincerity of the former president on the subject.
I think that it is political talk. We have seen these things happen in the past. When a party is in the opposition, is able to make all these promises, to raise all these concerns, but when they win the elections, their stand changes. And you see, people need this to be able to convince the electorate to vote for them. And that's why these things come up.
Vitus Azim is a former executive director of the Ghana Integrity Initiative. Now, the Ashanti Regional Minister Simon Osei-Mensah says he will hold nothing back in his testimony before the yet-to-start committee by the local government minister to probe the fire that destroyed part of the $259 million KTR market complex. According to him, advice and recommendations by the Regional Security Council to safeguard life and property of the market were ignored, resulting in bad blood between himself and the former Kumasi mayor, Osei Asibe-Enchi. Mr. Mensah tells Joy News managers of the facility even ignored advice by the fire service on the right fire hydrant to use.
I reported to the then Minister for Local Government, where I find out the KME boss, anytime I raise the issue, people insulted me on radio and on social media. It got to a point where I even wrote some of the insults and allegations to the then KME mayor. People said that I didn't like it. I'm going to write to the committee that will be set up by the Minister for Local Government, Decentralizing and Rural Development. I have to write all my reservations to them. If we are going to manage a market with more than 8,000 shops and you give them a single meter, and I told them all the risks involved. One, if that meter should break down, it will make the whole facility will not have power. Two, if you hook so many lines on 1 meter, you are letting the people pay higher bills. Because as we cross one band to the other band, it increases the amount you are going to pay. 3, how do you share among the various people? Somebody will be using air conditioning, somebody will be using deep freezer, some people will be playing music throughout the day, others will need just a single light, plus maybe one switch.
Well, the formal probe begins next week, but the regional minister says the issues surrounding the market fires are not new.
I've raised several reservations since 2019 before the triggers were moved to the facility. The first one was I wasn't in support of having a new team to manage the market. I felt since the contractors that consulted the facility were around. Unfortunately, they were going to consult the second phase, and we let some people understudy them instead of setting up a special purpose vehicle to establish a company to manage.
Well, that's the Ashanti Regional Minister Simon Osei-Mensah. Meanwhile, traders in the KTL market are on high alert to prevent on-site cooking after another trader was arrested for attempting to cook an open fire on Tuesday. Well, the incident comes barely a week after fire ravaged 30 shops there, with the investigation still ongoing. Yes, Nana Kwesi Prempeh is the president of the Traders Association.
We arrested her and sent her to the police station. She remained in the police custody till around 6 p.m. The police tell us they granted a bail, and she came to report herself this morning. Traders leadership see it as a duty on us to collaborate with the management and to be police ourselves to see to it that nobody goes contrary against the rules and regulations of the market.
That's we'll stay a while longer in the Garden City, and we know that the city has been undergoing a grim state of environmental changes. While the city is losing its green cover, drainage systems are peaking in their dangerous state. Residents have begun expressing disappointment in non-maintenance of the once glorified Garden City. Love FM's Clinton Yeboah explores the situation in this report.
Kumasi earned its accolade, the Garden City of West Africa, by the late Queen Elizabeth II during her visit to Kumasi in 1961. But the Garden City status in recent observation appears to be on a declining spree. From 2001 to 2021, Kumasi lost 1.21 hectares of tree cover, equivalent to a 42% decrease in tree cover since 2000, and 567 knots of carbon dioxide emissions. Many parts of the zoological gardens spanned across the city, like the Adesheman Gardens, currently serve as trading spots. The KJTR runabout, which gave the Kumasi city worthy of admiration, is lost. Additionally, drainage systems in the city are in their poorest conditions. The Bantamahene Bafo Owusu Amankwetia VI is worried about the dilapidating status of the once acclaimed Garden City.
Now when you come, you don't see anything.
Not only is the situation defacing the positive image of Kumasi, but it is also slowing down the conscious efforts to fight climate change. Reporting for Joy News, Clinton Yeboah.
Time for a quick breather here on the Midday News, sponsored by Petrosol, your clean fuel in full quantity. Petrosol, always a delightful experience. Also by Duraplast Ghana Limited, producers of quality PVC pipes and water tank. Where Duraplast goes, water flows. We've been taking a look at the desperate plea by industry players for government to abandon its quest to have 3 new tax measures considered key to the IMF program passed by Parliament. When we return, we have sports. We focus on that game later today. And then the death of a pregnant mother in Oti Region Island, a community sparks concern about quality of health care for the people.
It was something we could do very little about it. This person was situated on the islands without any health care, a sickle cell patient. Unfortunately delivered, started bleeding, and they couldn't get a boat to ferry her across for comprehensive health care.
Set for the showdown later today. Mubarak, take us away.
Yes, in less than 4 hours, the Black Stars will be back on the pitch for the first time in 2023 to face Angola in the Africa Cup of Nations qualifier. Ghana and Angola are currently separated by only on goal difference at the top of Group E, making the contest nicely poised and a potential decider in their race for a spot at next year's tournament in Ivory Coast. So the Black Stars attack from the outset or sit back and play on the break? Well, yes, Black Stars coach Chris Houghton with the answer.
Our responsibility is to get the right balance. You know, everybody wants to see goals, so there will be a percentage of the supporters that want to see more goals. There'll be a percentage of the supporters that want to make sure that we don't leave too many goals in. For me, it's about getting that balance, to have a team that's a good structured team, that defensively is good, but to win football matches you need to score goals. So this is something I'm very conscious of. My experience of Angola is technically a very good team. and obviously not to play as well as what I would like to, that they can cause us a lot of problems, and we will have to play well.
So yeah, the game is at 4 p.m. and there will be live commentary. Build-up starts at 3 p.m.
Go Black Stars, go.
Go Ghana.
I'll take you to the Oti region now, where the death of a pregnant mother in an island community there sparks concern about quality of healthcare for the people. A pregnant woman bled to death after delivering in one of the islands in the region. Oti Regional Health Director Dr. Osei-Kufo Afre says it is becoming risky and expensive providing quality healthcare for the 30% of the population on that island community. This, he argues, has contributed to the maternal mortality recorded in 2022. He's asking for more investment into healthcare delivery.
The death of a pregnant woman is very painful, extremely painful, and a loss economically, socially, and everything to the families. So once you want to make sure that somebody doesn't die also giving life, as a region, we took it upon ourselves. And I think consistently for 3 years, we've been able to reduce our maternal mortality. I can confidently say that when I took over in a region, maternal mortality ratio was in 3-digit figures. Last 2 years, we brought it to 2-digit figures.
Well, that's Dr. Osei-Kufo Afre, the Oti Regional Health Director. It's time for Tech Thursday, and imagine receiving a call from a parent or a childhood friend begging you to send them money immediately. You are almost certain that is definitely your loved one speaking. That is their voice you heard, and the caller ID is showing their number. Well, the next day, imagine that you call them back to make sure everything is fine, but you're surprised they never called you. Know that you've been tricked by technology, and it's called voice deep fake. Be on the lookout. Well, thousands of people are being scammed this way. On Tech Thursday, Love FM's Kwesi Debra speaks with KNUST cybersecurity expert Dr. Emmanuel Ahene on how you can protect yourself.
Technological advancements have made it possible to copy someone's voice. Crafting a compelling high-quality deepfake audio is not the easiest thing to do. It requires a wealth of artistic and technical skills, powerful hardware, and a fairly hefty sample of the target